right. Well, it's good to start to move over in front of this mic, but I don't need it. I have my mic with me. It's good to see a couple of you here. I knew I shouldn't have allowed this to be put out on Livestream because now many of you are going to be watching from home instead of being here tonight. But are glad that you are here, whether you're watching online or watching or here with us in the room. We're glad that you're here to be part of the presentation tonight. There is, if you haven't yet picked one up, there are some sheets by the door there or the door over here. Obviously, I can't give you one right now, but it will be available. We'll be sending this out, the proposed budget, with a letter from me and the planned giving cards early part of this coming week. So that will be coming up pretty soon. Just be anticipating that either by email or by snail mail, depending on your preference. Now let me begin with a word of prayer, and then we will get started just going through, I'm going to give some overarching information, history, and then we'll look at getting into the actual proposed budget itself. But let me lead us in a word of prayer. Father, we are thankful for your presence, your love, for your provision for our need, how you have provided so faithfully in the past. And we know, Father, that you are good, and you call for us to taste and see that you are good, and to walk by faith in you, and to honor you with how we live and how we give. We do thank you for the faithfulness of so many here at Northlake who are consistent and sacrificial in their giving and what it allows for us to do. And pray, Father, that as we look ahead at the coming year, as well as looking back very summary fashion at the past year, that we would recognize your hand of blessing and anticipate what is yet to come in the budget year that stretches before us. Thank you, Father, for your grace, and pray that you would be with us tonight as we seek to honor you. And I pray in the name of Christ. Amen. All right. Well, I was telling the booth guys, we have moved to doing the widescreen format on the screens, and I start always with the previous year's budget presentation, and I didn't think to change all of these slides. So they're in the smaller format in case you're wondering why that is the case. But let me begin with the expenses and receipts slide. This is just kind of giving you a breakdown of where we are thus far, starting at the bottom, which is the first quarter. And remember, our fiscal year starts in April, so the April, May, and June, and so forth from up there. So the first quarter, the black is our budget, which is just going to be the same each of those quarters. The blue is what our actual expenses are. The green color is our receipts. First quarter, April, May, and June of this past year, we received $207,000 roughly. We spent $195,000. Obviously, we're below budget in both of those areas, but relatively close. Well, about $15,000 difference between expenses and receipts. The second quarter, which would be July, August, September, our giving was $183,000 and change. The expenses, $192,000. Now, normally during that year, during that time of year is the summer, and our expenses spike. But with this past summer, that was not the case, obviously, so that expenses are lower than we had anticipated, the budget numbers still being the same. And then the third quarter, which is the fourth quarter of the calendar year, tends to be, historically has been our largest giving quarter, year-end type things coming in, October, November, December. You see our receipts, the highest, certainly in all these quarters, $234,000 roughly. Expenses less, again, still kind of tracing out the impacts of COVID. So you just kind of see in a graph format. Summary-wise, in the next slide, you will see just where we are through January. I didn't get the February numbers yet when I was putting these slides together. That has changed somewhat since then, obviously. But our budget expenses for the year through January, $627,000, round number. Our actual receipts, closer than we had anticipated, honestly, looking ahead with COVID and things that we had going on with some individuals who have left. But Still pretty strong giving, all things considered, $624,000. Expenses only $590 versus budget of $627. Again, a lot of things we did not do because of COVID. So the bottom line information about that, just giving some information about the numbers. The receipts were 0.6% below budget, not greatly below budget, but somewhat. And there are 5.8% above expenses. So all in all, really through January, we are doing well, and we've had some good weeks in February as well. So we give God praise for that. Let's go to the next slide, which is looking at just the big number on the proposed budget before we break it down into the individual component parts. Our proposed 21-22 budget is $815,491. Comparison to last year, if you don't have that information on hand, is a decrease of about $20,000, a little bit more than $20,000, and the percentage decrease of 2.5%. The bulk of that being Bill's retirement, is why that number is what it is. And we've reallocated some things here and there and shifted things around, but that's why the number dropped as it did. Just our expenses and payroll has decreased. All right, let me give just looking at the first main section there. We will go through these in sections, the missions, and then we'll look at music and children. Sarah will come up and go through those. Andrew will go through the student ministries. And typically, Bill and I will divide up the remaining categories, but even though Bill helped put these numbers together for the proposed budget for the coming year in the facilities area, as he's not going to be here for the implementation of those, I told him that I would let him off the hook and go ahead and present those numbers. But if you ask me a question I can't answer, I'll blame him. So it all works out. The local and global missions, just kind of clumped those together. Now this includes cooperative program giving, which is the National Southern Baptist Convention causes, our local Dallas Baptist Association, Mission Education Conference, which we don't really have a mission conference anymore. We just kind of kept that nomenclature. But emphasis that we have in the fall was surrounding missions. Our local missions activities that we are involved in, our mission trips, missionaries that we support individually. There are 3 families that we support each month. Benevolence, and then a category we call outreach and evangelism. That's, again, a title that has stayed in place, even though there's not a lot specifically in the evangelism component we do that costs a lot of money necessarily. We don't have revival type things that we do. But bulk of that is kind of more outreach and advertising type of things. But the total in that category last year was $67,545. This year, $62,766. Couple of things explanation-wise as to why that number dropped. First reason is our overall proposed budget drops, and 2 of the main components of our missions giving, the cooperative program and DBA, is a percentage of the total. So if the total is less, then that percentage of the total is going to be less. So that's part of the reason. We also decreased North Lake mission trips. We just don't anticipate in the near future that we're going to have an international mission trip, which was what a bulk of that and money was set aside for international mission trips. And we haven't really done one in a couple of years. We just kept money in the budget for it. I don't anticipate in 21 that we will do that. I mean, I'm always hopeful that we'll be able to get a team together that has the interest and the passion to want to do that, to pursue that. It's just not on the radar right now. We don't really know what the summer's going to look like, but probably not going to include that. So that, when you back that out, our giving for our individual missionaries hasn't changed. Benevolence dropped a little bit. It's more kind of a rounding drop. Outreach evangelism, which is really more our advertising type thing, we just haven't spent as much in that category. So as a result of that, we have dropped it again as well. So it's a 7% drop, but hopefully that information as to why those categories, why we dropped in those individual categories was sufficient to explain why we did so. All right. Any question on that section thus far? Sometimes I want to give people an opportunity to ask questions before we get too deep in. All right, if not, then Sarah will come up and share her 2 sections. You know how to use that mic, so I'll let you just turn that on and go.
All right. So starting with music, there was no change in music and supplies. We can scooch on over to the next one. Most of these, we are going to pretend as if we were to have had all the activities last year like we wanted to, we will proceed forward with the same plan for this year. So that's why you'll see it's unchanged. Not that we spent that much last year, but hope to this year. In crew and preschool choir, children's choirs currently aren't meeting because there's no Sunday night bonanza right now. So, but if we were to get to have children and preschool choir, we have the literature on hand to do that. So even if we got to start that, we don't need to buy any new literature for those. Music equipment has gone down because there were some things like these super nice microphones and other things that we bought last year that we don't need to buy this year. There's some really exciting updates coming to our focal point right here very soon, but those are being allocated through other designated funds and other areas, so it just doesn't hit in this place. So there's a decrease in music equipment. Next one. So you'll see that decrease in music equipment reflected right here in the total of the music ministries. That's it for music. There will be an Easter presentation on Palm Sunday. We rehearsed this afternoon and it sounds fabulous. Y'all are going to really enjoy it. It will not have acting because I think the Last Supper, 6 feet apart, is going to be super awkward. So we're just going to sing and it's going to be awesome. All right, any questions on music before we go to children? All right. And in children's ministry, children's events, which we're going to do this year, are unchanged. That includes preteen camp, fall festival, not VBS, but all the major children's events. We're leaving that one unchanged from last year. And then VBS, we're going destination dig. We're going to be on an archaeological dig this year, and we are going to have it in July. And it's going to be awesome the week right after July 4th, July 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. All right. Preschool children's supply has a decrease. So if you're looking at the numbers closely, it'll look like last year we did spend most of it and maybe even over a little. That is because we absorbed some Sunshine kids. We put help Sunshine out by putting them in the black by taking from all the supplies that we did not need. So we actually didn't spend all that. So a decrease should still be, we should have plenty to work with there. That is mostly like resource room things, snacks, things like that. The cost of our literature is showing that it went down, Jerry Miller, but it went up. Mine still should. Remember that the increase in the digital literature? She's going to look. She may have spread it out. Kay may have spread it out into a different area too. But our literature is all digital now. We print it all in-house to save us some money. We'll double check and make sure that's exactly right. While she's looking, the next one. The decrease there is from the preschool children's supply that went down. Any questions about that? We did get to take out the DVD cost since we went to the digital DVD, so that may have been reflected there. All right. Boom.
A question for Sarah? All right, Andrew.
Well, just to echo everything of this past year and just the complications with that, we've definitely been trying to think outside of the box of what that means of how to best minister in this time, and it has been a trying time, but being able to do more things recently. We actually have 3 events coming up this next 2 weeks because of intercession and spring break, so excited that things are becoming a little more normal, be able to do things, to go places, be able to get past the snowmageddon, and COVID seems to be, we're getting somewhat behind it, and being able to, exciting times moving forward with that as well. And so you'll see in the youth events that there's 1,000 decrease. and to use the money in the Youth Student Ministry Reserve. And so I'll explain that real quick. A lot of times what Sarah is talking about with UC VBS is such a great expense because we are running that VBS, that we are covering all of those things that are needed, that people are coming here. But with youth ministry, with our group size, we've actually been very, very fortunate, and God has blessed great contacts throughout the state of Texas. So we're able to go and partner with people for Disciple Now here in the Raleigh Garland area, or with the DBA as well. And then for camp, we're able to partner up with multiple churches, so that money that we can bring a small amount to that piece of the pie, if you will, when you're paying for that. And so we're able to have that big youth ministry event, Big D Now, all these different things. It just looks a little different because we are partnering with other churches instead of us hosting and running that all together. So all of those things that you see there, we were able to do as far as camp and mission trip and all of that because we're able to partner with different churches in the area. And that $1,000 decrease is, one, to help alleviate and help some of the budget in general, but two, that we have such money in the reserve that can be pulled out at any time for camp, for Disciple Now, for any event that we want to do. And so there's not really a need to feel like that we are hurting an area as far as our ministry size and things that we want to do. The money that we have budgeted here is well off and in that reserve as well for us to do events. So I see that $1,000 decrease and tried to explain. Does anybody have any questions about that before we go forward? All right, we can go to the next slide. The Cove is, that we all know, is our college and career class, and they use that $1,000. They had a much more money allocated for that, for different things they were doing inside their meeting room, but they've been able to do some of those renovations and painting. If you go back there, you can see it's a different color and different stuff like that. And so kind of a decrease because they've been able to accomplish some of those things, but also they use that $1,000 because I've been on personally a fall retreat that we've been on at different events throughout the year. So $1,000 is budgeted for that. Go to the next slide. $275 for the Bible study literature remains unchanged. I've actually been able to help write some of the curriculum, but looking to purchase some of the curriculum for maybe this next coming up fall into the spring. And with that cost, it won't be very much at all. And there's a lot of things, a lot of free stuff online as well, be able to use as far as resources. But as far as purchasing literature, that's plenty of money for what is available to teach the amount of students that we have as well. Next slide. And so all in all, there is that decrease. But if you realize that the reason why we decrease is because we have such a good amount of money in that student reserve that will help cover anything else that we would need to do as a student ministry, but also for our student ministry size. And with that reserve and the things that we do, if partnering other churches, the $4,475 is well enough for us. I think that's about it. Does anyone have any questions about that? Compensate for growth? As far as will that budget be able to help with that? Mm-hmm. Yes. No, yes, no, I agree. No, the reserve is plenty enough to cover for any amount of student growth that we would have as well.
I think part of it is that we were trying to encourage the expenditure of some of the money that has been given for student ministry, that we've had money in budgets we've just spent there in the years, and this has not been utilized, so we're trying to shift that to use this. I mean, if there is a need in student ministry because our growth is there, we will find the money for that, but we're just trying to encourage the use, not frivolous, but expending it for the needs that we have. And there's a good chunk, I don't remember exactly how many, but there's several thousand that are is in there. So there's
and we can use that to cover for scholarships if new students come to anything that we're doing this summer. And as far as if everything stays on this course this summer with camp and mission trip and everything is to go, and so we'll have well more than enough.
We are claiming that we are going to be able to do those things this summer.
Yes. All right.
And we do have also for youth mission trip, that's in the missions category, so that's not in youth student ministries itself. That's actually part of our local and global missions, so there's money there set aside for that. About $2,000 or so. All right, the next section there, you see adult ministries or educational ministries. Let me get caught back up in my folder up here because I have all the pages in my printout. All right, the first section there, the first category, senior adults. Now they were obviously one of the groups that was largely hit with COVID in terms of activities being put on hold. There's not a lot that we allocate for that, $300, but that $300 is unchanged from last year, and they didn't expend it this past year, but we're hoping that they will be able to and have need for it, so we're certainly going to leave that same in our budget. The next item is our men's and women's ministry. This is a slight decrease, really kind of a rounding decrease, if anything, but we are hoping to and praying that we are going to do more things. Then there's several things we just didn't expend last year because we didn't have the opportunity to do it, but anticipating that we will be able to do those things this year, we're leaving those dollars in. We'd like to do some kind of men's Bible study at some point, so we'll keep that thought in mind as we move forward. Adult education is the next section there, which is, well, the Bible study, Christian growth is the last in this section, sorry. The little increase here, because we have seen an increased interest in the material that we are purchasing. Now, in all of our adult classes, most of that material that we do is actually still in print form. I think all of it is. There might be some downloadable resources we have available, but it's based on a printed curriculum. Both our children and student ministries use an online type of a curriculum, so the costs are less there, but we are seeing the need, more books that are being ordered and delivering to people because we're able to Zoom them in where they weren't able to do before, so that is a beneficial thing. We certainly will pay money to buy people quarterly if they would like to be able to participate, but that's a slight increase, 7.4% for our Bible study. Christian growth, again, is just a title. We didn't really have much of that this past year. But primarily that's the Sunday morning Bible study material. The total category then for that is slight increase there, 4.9% increase. The bulk of that really was the Bible study, the previous slide, more material, more money for the material that we are purchasing for our Bible study, Sunday morning Bible study. The next is really the individual section, a section of one item, the building loan, our mortgage payment. That is showing a decrease. Why is that showing a decrease? Well, we paid off the debt. No, we haven't. We have made good progress on it, however. But we're showing moving from $137,800 to $126,000. Why is that? Well, our debt is structured within a variable rate plan, which sometimes is a very bad idea, but for us, it has been a very good thing. And we have been at that basement level. I think it's like prime plus 0.5%. I mean, it's really a good deal. And we've been down there for I can't remember how long. So we have what we've budgeted to actually spend, what our required expenditure is for the payment, is much less. We have to kind of budget for anticipation that that's going to go up, so we're budgeting for a larger amount that we might need to pay, but we're not actually having to pay that whole amount. And that's been the case. We've done that for several years where we have budgeted more than our actual payment required was. Because what if the rates skyrocket, and if you go, it's a 4% swing from the bottom to the top, and if you make that big of a swing on that much debt, that payment is going to increase significantly. So we got to have some elasticity and budgeting more than we're actually spending at the time. But because things have moved so slowly in raising the rates back up, this still allows us to budget more than what our required payment is. Now, let me, at the same time, just in case some of you are wondering, there are individuals who give extra amount each month or periodically that we once a month will make payment of. all of those dollars that are come in is beyond what we're talking about our payment. All of that is applied to principal only. So if you are giving money, yes, it is given to reduce principal. What we budget for is what the payment required is. Our payment required has been much less than what we have budgeted. We are now taking some of that back out because it is such a widespread that we just don't anticipate in this next year that we're going to have need. And we're still going to have thousands more budgeted than we will have actual required payments made. So we've just been able to find some room in the budget by reducing that number down a little bit. Yes? The required payments, like $8,000 a month. That sound about right? Yeah, but we've budgeted for like 11 or 12,000 a month. We've reduced it. I mean, it had been higher amounts, so there's several thousand per month that the rate difference. The difference between, let me make sure that I understand what you're asking. I didn't wear my hearing aids tonight. I'm sorry. Not the full 4%, because when they start raising rates, they're not going to raise them all. They're going to raise it like a quarter or half point at a time. If we need to go back in and adjust it back up, certainly we will. Sorry. Sometimes an accounting ear can hear the question better than a non-accounting ear. So, any other question on that? Yes, Paul. Mm-hmm. We batted that back and forth, and we really, for the last several years, we have done that. Because I can't remember, it's been 7-8 years we've been in the basement on our rate, and we've been just paying it. And every time we put more dollars in, that's less principal, and overall less money that we're paying. I think we just looked at it through the lens of we've been having to, over the last couple of years, cut so many different things. Last year we cut salaries, we've cut missions, we've cut some positions, we've cut ministries down in various ways, but we've never taken any out of that. And we're at a point where we don't want to continue taking away from here, and this was a way for us with that cushion that we have to allow some room to avoid some other cuts that we might have to make if it were necessary. But yes, I mean, part of me says, let's just pay everything we can, as much as we can. The other side is me, yeah, but we're not doing this, so it's a balancing act. But that, as far as the reasoning, was where we came to that conclusion. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. No, I understand. And is a good point, and I had meant to say I will try to repeat for live streaming audience what questions or comments made in the room were. He was just making the point, if you never know exactly what the future is going to hold, and those in Washington now may raise rates quicker than need be. Obviously, we are going to make our required payments. I mean, if we have to go over budget from what we budgeted here, we're going to do what we need to do on that. And there's always the ability to have room at the end of a year, as we can make bonuses to staff payments. We can also make additional payments in reduction if we have excess there, that we can always, the Finance Committee has that ability, obviously, at any time to do so. But we always want to be cautious in that balancing act. It's the first time we've actually taken a step in quite some time to reduce there. But if anybody does have their checkbook and want to just pay off the debt, that'd be great. Yes. What Jerry was saying, again, for a live stream audience, is that you will see that as we get later into the budget, the building maintenance facility costs are increasing. It's an inverse proportion. As you pay off, then the cost of maintaining increases. And we've seen that over the last couple of years. We've moved a good bit, and we're looking at, part of me looks at our surplus that we have and says, man, we're doing great. We can raise some things. Then the other part of me says, yeah, but our phone system, we've been told that they may come out and say, there's just nothing else we can do. You have to buy a new phone system. It is so antiquated. But right now it works, so we're holding on to it. Our HVAC system, all of the controllers that control all of the 42 units that we have 3 more controllers that have gone bad, and they're each like $15,000 to $2,000, and we're at a point now where there's only one person who works on those controllers because the technology is so old in the Central Texas area. One person, and he's 62 years old. They don't train in that software anymore. The Solidigm software that we use is just not supported anymore. So it is possible that we're going to have to look at, in the not too distant future, upgrading all of the controllers on all 42 units, which would be probably into 6 figures. So always look at surplus through the lens of within your maintenance cost. We just have to consider all factors there. I hope we don't have to do that, but that is, if all of these things start failing, we don't want to keep spending thousands of dollars to get us back to a system that nobody else can work on. I mean, at some point, we're just going to have to figure out a better option. I just don't know what that option is right now. But that's for another day. That's not what we're here to talk about today. Was there another question over here? Saw a hand, or was that just mentioned to Paul? Okay. All right, the next section, administration. In the administration ministry, we'll start with facilities and support, and then we will skip down to general administrative, and then we'll do the salaries and benefits last, just in case you're wondering. That's just kind of the order that we have followed. It tends to be the greater questions in the salary and benefits section. But the facility and support, the first section there, we've grouped together electricity, water, and gas, all of our utility costs. A slight increase, not a huge increase, but we hadn't had a lot of usage. The summer tends to be our bulk. That sounds like a lot for your home utility usage. Keep in mind, in the summer, when we're going full bore and using the facility, our monthly bills can be sometimes $6,000 to $7,000. So yeah, we do have to budget that much. It seems like a lot, but that's just one of those things that you have to pay. So it's a slight increase. I didn't do a percentage on that because such a small amount, but it is an increase over last year. The telephone, this is to maintain our antiquated system that we have. We are having to increase the cost for support on that, hoping that we can continue to get it repaired when it goes down. That's just what we're looking at when we come up with these figures. Part of that is, this is not a set amount we're paying each month. It's just kind of averaging out, okay, of the past 10 months, we spent this much, divided by 10 times 12, allowing for growth. We need to increase that because we anticipate it's going to cost more in the future going ahead. That's why there's a big jump there, because it has cost us more of late. And we do have, in our phone system, we have multiple phones, obviously, throughout the facility. We have like 5 or 6 lines. We have a fax line. We have to have one for the elevator. And there are just various ones that we have to keep up. For the alarm system, we have to have a separate line. The property insurance is the next category there. That's a slight increase. We just have not gotten the indication that that will increase significantly, so we've kept it roughly the same. Janitorial service is the next category. This is, up until about 3 years ago, time gets away from me, 3 or 4 years ago, we had 2 custodians that we employed directly. So we paid them, we paid their salary, benefits, all of those things. And we moved to, a couple of years ago, having Russell, who is as good as gold as you could possibly get. And then we had the second position contracted out to a company that we are paying them to have a person come in 3 days a week and work. Their costs just kind of periodically go up, not a lot, but incrementally they've gone up. But that's about what we would pay another full-time person anyway. So it's still beneficial to us to have that. But that's what that janitorial service line item is, because you will see later in the salaries a custodial. Well, that's Russell's. That's not this, because this is not salary to us. It's just a hard cost. The next couple of categories, custodial supplies and infrastructure growth. Both of those are unchanged from last year. I know there's more infrastructure type things that we may have to look at. If we were to have to do one of those things that I threw out to you as a possibility, we're not going to be able to budget that. Number one, we don't know when it would be. And number two, that is such a large cost, we would have to figure out another way of doing it. So budgeting it doesn't do us any good. So we've kept that, both of those items the same as last year. Building maintenance, and this is one that Jerry alluded to a moment ago. This is going from $60,000 to $70,000. Why? Because we are spending closer to the latter number than the former. The more the facility ages, that's just the reality. Continue to have roof problems in some of our areas. These controllers that we mentioned, that we've had to replace one. The other three we're not replacing yet, because the guy said he can still keep them going remotely. If they go down, he can reprogram them. And he's a good guy. He works with us well, and he won't charge us to do that. So he's been very helpful to us. But those increases are simply what we are paying for the maintaining of the facility. That's our kind of reality of what we deal with. We can't not fix the roof when it leaks, or the elevator when it breaks down, or something like that. The next category, or the next categories, equipment repair, new equipment, and transportation costs. All of those are the same as last year. Equipment repair is when one of our things that we have, equipment that we utilize, breaks down. Why is that only $1,700? Because we live in a society where there are many things we just don't repair anymore. It's cheaper to purchase new ones if they break down. One of the exemptions to that rule is our riding vacuum cleaner that Russell uses. That's an expensive piece, so that is one that we do maintain and repair it when it needs it. Other things, from yourself, you never repair TVs anymore, or electronic type things. A computer maybe, but most of the time, when we bought a bunch of new desktop units for the office, each one cost us like $350, $400. Getting it fixed and the repair time and cost, it doesn't make sense to repair a lot of things anymore. But that's why the number is not very high on that. New equipment, we do periodically need to buy new things. That's not a lot of money that we spend doing that. It tends to be smaller type things. Bigger things, we just have to figure out another way, because we never know when something's going to break down, and we don't want to budget tens of thousands of dollars in case something happens. Those things we do kind of on a case-by-case basis. Transportation cost are the maintaining of the bus. It is paid for, obviously, but it still costs to maintain that. Tires, gas, repairs, inspection, the trailers that we have, all of those things. So that's what that cost is. We didn't spend all that this year because we didn't do as much traveling as we typically do, but typically we will spend that amount in transportation costs. So that category in facilities and support, you see an increase, a good bit of increase, $15,000 over last year. The bulk of that was the maintenance category, was $10,000. From $194,900 to $209,600, a 7.5% increase over the previous budget year. Any questions on items in that section before we move to the next one? Which is not the next one, but the next one after that. General and administrative category. Educational supplies and training dropped slightly, not a lot. And I meant to take that off of there at the bottom. You can see that background checks every 2 years, because now we have a friend who is able to do those, and it doesn't cost us $15 a person to do that. But for insurance reasons, we still do that on every person who drives a vehicle, any person, a criminal background check on everyone who works with any ministry in our church, and then motor vehicle background checks on those who drive the vehicle or would drive the vehicle. But that's not included in that anymore. That's just other training that we might do and supplies that we might need in the educational ministry. The next category, revival and pulpit supply, another one that we've kept the title, but really it's used for pulpit supply. When I am out, and you will be glad to know that I have now crested another longevity point where I have 4 weeks of vacation. You wrote the personnel policy, not me. So this we increased it to allow for that 4th week. And we don't have as many individuals in the church as we have had in the past who can fill in for me. So typically we will have someone from outside fill the pulpit when I'm out. And we have spent that this year, the $750. Discipleship is the next category, and you see that maybe disconcertedly. That is 0. Why is that? Well, that was really a category that we created for Blanchard when he was here. It's not like we're not doing any discipleship. But this was money that was allocated for him to do the things that he wanted to do in discipleship ministry. And as Blanchard is not here anymore, that's those types of things, working with the people not in parole, community service, kids, and Bibles that he would buy them sometimes when he worked with them. That's just not those types of programs. We don't have somebody who's doing that. That's why we removed those dollars. The next 2 categories, media, library, and flowers. Actually, not next 2 back to back, but I'll put them on the same slide if there's unchanged. Media library, that money that is allocated there, $340. The bulk of that, $320 or something. It is the cost annually for the software that they use for that ministry in there. So it's most of it comes, and you'll see it when we have our monthly meetings, because when it hits, you have most of the other categories, you'll have 5 or 10% of the budget expended for that 1 month, and this one, it's all the way over in that 1 month because we just have the expense once a year. Flowers is, we purchase flowers for when we have someone who passes away, funeral. You can't ever obviously forecast what that is going to be, but we do have money that we set aside in the budget to be able to buy flowers for that occasion. The one that I skipped over there, the fellowship expenses, it was between media, library, and flowers. That has increased $600, 8.7% increase, but the cost of supplies are increasing. Some we have not been purchasing, like coffee area supplies, but we do hope to be, we go back and forth on this. Should we open up the water fountain? Should we start having coffee? Well, some say yes, some say no. I'm just in I'm not sure yet type of a framework, but when we do resume those ministries, whenever that might be, obviously those costs are going to be there, and that number we get by looking at what we're spending. It's not like we're planning on a big party for this coming year, but that's kind of on track with what we have been or anticipate spending. Next, we have office administration and copier lease and usage. There's actually 3 separate line items in our overall budget. We've grouped them together here because they have similar direction. We pay for a copier lease payment. Each month it's the same amount. But there is also an extra amount that we pay for color copies. If you ever wonder why we make you have to put in a separate code to make color copies, and we guard that with our lives, we will make color copies for you. We don't want that code to get out, and then people come in and make color copies all the time. It does cost us per page to make color copies. It does for black and white too, but it's like 0.000. It's a real small amount for black and white. For color, it's 8 to 10 cents a page. So we are more careful on that. And then office admin is everything else expense-wise that we use in the office, all of the supplies throughout the year. That increased $2,500, $3,000 roughly. The bulk of that, though, is not really an increase in supplies that we are using. The bulk of that is the credit card processing fee. What is that? Well, the online giving has become much more popular in the last several years, and that's going to increase. That's not going to decrease. Many people like to give online. Many people like to give with credit card, sometimes perhaps because they get perks from using that credit card. But it also costs us if a person uses a credit card versus a debit card. We have had this reality for the last couple of years. We've not actually put it into the budget, but now it just comes to a point where we need to really account for that. We know we're going to spend it because people are going to give. It's like a percentage of each purchase. It's not a set fee. But we're anticipating, look on what we have spent, increasing that a bit because online giving is increasing more. We give, I think there is a screen on if you give online through the website, where you're given the option of increasing your amount to cover the processing fee, which I understand when people say, well, I'm giving what I'm going to give. That's fine, but it's still a cost. So we're budgeting to anticipate that amount is going to be included. And that's why that increase is there. It is a couple $1,000s. But you look at what, 5 years ago, how much people gave electronically versus how much they give now, and Kay's not here to give those numbers. It is a significant increase. So we can't not have that ability out there. We just have to budget in for that allowance. Stewardship Supplies is really primarily the envelopes, the lovely envelopes that many of you get in the mail, but also for the envelopes that we have in the worship center itself. Other than the special giving envelopes for mission emphases, those come from the mission boards. We do those separately. But the other ones that are just in the pews for regular weekly giving, that comes through a service that we utilize. The cost per box sent out to individuals is not really that high. I don't remember exactly what the cost is, but for a year covering for that individual, getting envelopes in the mail is $30 or something. But we've looked at it from the perspective of if receiving envelopes in the mail encourages someone who doesn't normally give to normally give, that covers the cost of all of the expenses for the envelopes for everybody in the church. So it's a good reminder for folks. I know some of you don't use them. And I always point out to people, if you receive envelopes and don't want them because you give electronically, let us know. We can remove you from that list, and that does reduce our costs slightly. But this is a good ministry for us to continue to have. So that's why we have the money in. It's decreased slightly again because you have more online giving than giving by check or cash in an envelope on Sunday mornings. The next category, postage, has increased by $650. The staff has been much more diligent in writing individual notes to people during this time when we've not been able to do a lot of other things. And just in case you're wondering, and I was wondering, yes, I called the hospitals again this week, and I called the rehabilitation center this week, and we are still not allowed to visit folks. I was hoping we get to a point where if you're a pastor, nope, they won't. So there's limits in what we can do, but we can write, we can call, we can email and text, and we are trying to do all of those things more. It's an increase, a large percentage increase, but it's $650 is not a lot. And if I can get more of our staff members writing notes individually to you, and if I do that more to you, I feel that's a good contact point, then that's money well worth the expenditure. The next line item there, computer support and web hosting expenses. As I mentioned earlier, I think, we have just recently, time gets away from me, 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we upgraded all of the staff, all of the office computers. So there's less maintenance when you have a newer machine. So we've been able to reduce that cost expense-wise slightly. But we still have ongoing expenses, our hosting expenses and such, which we are. I don't know if anybody visit the website. Yes, I'm aware we have for the last several days. We had a server went down with our hosting company, and that has kind of created a cascading effect, and it impacted email, it impacted our website, and now they're still working on getting the website acclimated to the new server that they've had to put in, and there's some stuff that's not agreeing. And they're working through that. I just texted them this afternoon, and they are still working on it. But that's why the website is still down. or hard to get to at least. The category total there, last year was $38,780. This year, or coming year, $41,581, so a 7% increase. The previous year, there was a decrease. It's going to go up and down as we go back and forth, but that is the category, all of those administrative elements that we have in our budget. Any questions on those? All right, the last one is our salary and benefits, which is certainly a large section within our budget. And I saw this when I was going through it, and then I got sidetracked and didn't get to K to make that correction. If you notice in the ministerial salaries, it says in parentheses 5. That actually has not been accurate for a couple of years now. This year it was 4. Next year it will actually be 3, because Bill will retire. So that should be a 3, not a 5, but just FYI. The ministerial salaries for the 3 individuals that we have, well, last year there were 4, $182,150. This coming year will be 3, $164,100, and this is just salary, not benefits involved. There are some raises included in that, and there is Andrew is going to be taking on with guidance and oversight to kind of help acclimate many of the building maintenance stuff that Bill has done in the past. So we have done some raising in the salary because of that. And really there is historical precedent for that, because George and Chris Trent, both, they were responsible for building maintenance. That was part of their job description. I remember thinking it kind of interesting when I was here and George did that. Afterwards, when Bill came, we separated them. Now we're kind of putting them to a degree. Not all of those. I'm doing some of them of what Bill did, but he's doing some of them as well. So there's some raises in there for all 3. A little bit more with Andrew because of the extra tasks that he's going to be taking on compared to the rest of us. But it is a decrease, but that was because, again, Bill is retiring, so that salary goes away. Part of it was allocated over here. Part of it is just no longer going to be in the budget. Ministry assistants salaries, the next line item, also 3. That number is correct. Last year was $71,600. This year, or coming year, will be $68,700. Kay, by her own desire, is going to move to part-time. So she is, because of that, her salary is going to be decreased to reflect that. But when a person moves from, personnel policy-wise, from full-time to part-time, part of the benefits go away too. So there's twofold impact on the budget of her moving to part-time. She's not retiring, which I'm grateful for, but her salary is being reduced. There's some raises in there, but primarily it's K's reduction is what that decrease is for, what accounts for that. The next one, remember I mentioned that we have the custodian that we have a custodial janitorial service line item for. This custodial salary is for Russell, and we did give him a raise this year, far less than the man deserves. I tell you, there is no one living who knows more about this building than Russell McKenzie does. And we need to find a way to mine that knowledge and get him to write it down or something, because he knows how everything works. He knows where all the blueprints are. He knows where this plug is and this item is, and he can fix most of it. Our building maintenance costs would be significantly higher were not for Russell to be able to fix a lot of the things that he does. So we would like to raise it more. We did certainly raise it 3%. The temporary / part-time salaries, what is that and why is it increasing from $9,300 to almost $14,000? Well, that's all the part-time people that we have. Child care expenses are included in that as well. But we are probably going to be in the not too distant future looking to move to paying a pianist again. That had not been included in budget for the last couple of years at Deanna's request. But as we may be needing to go in a new direction, we we have another one, we're going to have to obviously pay them a salary. So we've added that into the budget, and that really accounts for all of the cost increase in that category. Ministry expense is another incorrect number. That should say actually 3, because Blanchard had 1 as well. So when it was Lynn plus Blanchard, there were 6. But these numbers we just don't think to go back through and correct, but that should be 3, myself, Andrew, and Sarah. There's a decrease from 8,000 to 5,200. Well, that's because Bill is not here, and obviously we're not budgeting his ministry expense. But there's also a little bit of reduction because of ministry expense not being utilized. We reduced it some as well. The love gifts and bonuses, the next item there, line item, moves from 4,400 to 3,675. This is composed of 2 things. There is an anniversary bonus that is given to each staff member based upon a formula that's in the personnel policy of how long that you've been here. And then there is a Christmas bonus that is not the same formula, but also based on a formula that each staff member, full-time and part-time, receives. But all of those together form this amount. The reason it is decreasing is because we don't have Bill or Blanchard that would be involved in those things, so the number goes down. There might have been one person who went up a peg, and it's how many years you've been here, and if you get every 5, increment of 5, I think one goes up a slight amount, but mainly it's the reduction is because of those 2. The next one, as much as we would like to control this and not have to do it, we all have to pay taxes. Employee payroll taxes last year, $22,323. This year, $21,092. Again, Bill is retiring, so the cost is going to be less there. Employee retirement, next category, last year, $21,700. This coming year, $19,000. A 12.3% decrease. That's a larger decrease because you have not just 1 but 2 that you have reduced. Well, no, the bill doesn't ever have it, so I guess it's just a smaller amount. I wonder if I did that percentage correct. Anyway, it is, yeah, because it's just $1,700. That's just Kay's amount that goes away because she is retiring. So I might have done the percentage wrong. But the number is right. Health insurance for the staff members who receive that, which is the 3 ministerial staff members, goes from $19,376 to $23,485. We all wish that health insurance went down rather than up, but it doesn't. And we also have previous year, Sarah, when we budgeted, Brandon was covered through his work with the city of Plano. Now he is incorporated into Sarah's policy. That cost went up. Now staff members pay half of the cost, but half of an increase is still going to be an increase. So we have that increase there as a result of that. And also went up. I think both of ours went up a little bit. Mine went up more because I'm older. But that's what that cost increase is entailed, adding and some increases. So the category total there for personnel, last year, $364,709. This coming year, $345,758, which is a 5.2% decrease. Kay and Bill and Blanchard's salary was still in there, so those factor into why that number went down. All right, any question on those salaries and benefits? The next slide is the bottom line, just coming back to the summary. I didn't have this earlier, but the current year budget is $836,000. The proposed budget for the coming year is $815,500 roughly, which is a $21,000 roughly decrease. Weekly need amount that we would need to meet that every week is not the same, but an average is about $15,700. Overall, the budget decreased 2.5% from the previous year. All right. I used to, when I started doing this, I had a lot more graphs and charts and history, and I saw y'all falling asleep, so we try to move a little bit more quickly through this now. But if you ever have questions about the budget, personnel, anything, we have open books. Anybody can come by if you have a question and talk with Kay. There's nothing hidden here that you can certainly have access to. But any questions for us when we look at the budget, proposed budget as it stands from our Budget and Finance Committee? All right. Well, we will have one other opportunity on the 17th, I believe, Wednesday night. If you have questions, now you can certainly, you don't have to wait till then. If you have a question, you want to email me or call Kay or Jerry or Calvin, somebody on the Finance Committee. We'd be glad to talk with you if you have specific questions. But if not, then we will kind of put this proposed budget evening in the books. And we're not really in a business meeting, so we don't have to call for a motion to adjourn or anything, but I will lead us in a word of prayer, and we will be dismissed. Thank you for being here tonight, and for you online joining us as well. Father, we are thankful for your blessings here at North Lake, as we acknowledge, Father, from the beginning, and hope that we would continue to do. All that we have is yours. Every dollar that is given, we desire to be used for your kingdom expansion and the various ways in which it is budgeted to be used here. Father, may we always operate with transparency and integrity, and let no person have a question that is unanswered that they may have. Though we may not always agree on how expenses are done or how budgets are set, we are united in purpose, and our purpose is to see your kingdom expand, to see your name be glorified, and to be faithful to you in the field where you have placed us, in the season where you have put us here. May we be faithful in our giving. May we be faithful in our praying. And may we be faithful in our sharing, Lord, that we would recognize church begins here, but our lives, what we reflect out to others, is when we truly demonstrate to the world that we are your children. May we be faithful to do so, Lord, is my prayer in the name of Christ. Amen. All right, thanks, folks. And folks, y'all have a great week.